Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Dr. Vincent Esposito, and today we are on pillar number 3 of the 5 pillars of health. Today we are talking about sleep. So sleep is obviously very important to our health, and we're looking to get somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. That's ideal. It varies per person. Some people function well at 7, 8, 9, anywhere in between. I'm usually somewhere between 7.5 and 8. That's what works for me. But how does sleep work? So we mentioned cortisol in the stress component in our last video. And if you notice here, at this graph on the right, cortisol plays a big role in our sleep and wake functions. If you notice the graph here, cortisol is actually at its highest in the morning when we wake up. And these graphs can shift a little bit either way depending on when you wake up. So here you're waking up, say around, 7:30 or so. And then through the day, ideally, cortisol levels are supposed to drop. So if you've ever done a 24-hour cortisol, a salivary cortisol test, if your cortisol is not moving in this kind of slope direction, you're probably having some sort of stress issues or potentially sleep issues. Melatonin, on the other hand, is the hormone responsible for our sleep. And during the day, as you can see in the blue, it is much lower and it's at its lowest. Now, melatonin begins to rise as the sun goes down. So usually around 6 p.m. it could shift either way depending on how much sunlight there is, because sunlight plays a huge role in their circadian rhythm, and these two hormones play a huge role in that circadian rhythm as well. Really, at the end of the day, we want to get our cortisol and melatonin levels to mimic those of this graph. So we want our melatonin to be highest at night because that's going to help us sleep, and we want our cortisol levels to be highest in the morning because that's going to actually help wake us up in the morning. The question is, how do we do that? Well, we're going to talk about a bunch of different strategies you can use to help improve your sleep quality and sleep quantity if you undersleep, or improve it if you oversleep as well. So the goals we should be shooting for. To start, ideally we want to be in bed somewhere between 10 o'clock and 10:30 at night p.m. I understand that might be early for some people, or in some cases it's late for some people, but that's ideal if we could get down to 10:30. Now normally what I tell those I work with is, if you happen to be a late sleeper, if you go to sleep at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. even, don't try to go to sleep at 10 o'clock the next day because you're gonna feel fatigued and it's just gonna feel off. Generally you want to ease your way into it. Again, that practice of sustainability long term. Ideally, if you're gonna do something like this, try to shave back 10 to 15 minutes every couple days. So say if you're going to bed at midnight, go to sleep at 11:45 the next few days, and then 11:30, and then 11:15, and slowly scale your way back. It's much more manageable, and you'll be able to reap the benefits versus going through sort of a crash diet approach, which is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do here on this channel. Finish eating about 3 hours before bed, ideally. Now, if we eat closer to bedtime, again, eating food gives us energy. Energy is going to keep us up and kind of ruin this graph a little bit for us. So ideally, we want to give ourselves a little bit of time to rest and digest before going to bed. So about 3 hours seems to be the optimal window if possible. The big one, it's limiting electronics an hour before bedtime. Now, it may be unrealistic to completely shut off all electronics an hour before bedtime, but try to do your best to work towards that. Maybe it's listening to music, maybe going for a walk or reading. These are all ways you can kind of eliminate exposure to kind of other external sources of light, especially blue light, which we're going to get into next. Next one is big, but it's super easy. It's installing blue light filters on your smartphone, on your laptop, potentially even on your TV if your TV has that option. All of the later generations of smartphones have what is a night mode or a night light mode or something like that, where what they do is you can decrease the amount of blue light exposure. You notice your screen might go to a more reddish hue. That's what we're looking for, because that blue light will actually trigger the release of cortisol, which gets us up, which gives us energy. So we want to be limiting our exposure to blue light. Investing in some blue light filtering glasses, these range in price. We've talked about this on our podcast, The Art of Eating, in our sleep tips episode. We talked about a lot of this there, so you can find that there too. The blue light filtering glasses, they could range from anywhere between like $10 to $50, $60. A lot of them seem to do the job. They're essentially just red. They almost look like lab goggles for the most part. So they're great if you like watching TV later at night, throw on the goggles. They'll help filter out that blue light, and again, it'll help boost that melatonin production and help kind of get you going, getting ready for bed. The next few are going to be about sleep environment. So the first one is cracking a window if possible at night. If it's too cold, that's understandable. Maybe get another blanket, but having fresh air in the room will help you sleep. To that same effect, we're keeping the bedroom somewhere between 66 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. That seems to be the ideal temperature to get sleep at. And again, if you happen to have air conditioning, or if you can open your window, trying to get it somewhere in that range creates an environment for optimal sleep. Next, turn off all night lights. So if you have night lights in the room, again, ideally you want to be exposing yourself to as little light as possible. So if you can get rid of those night lights, that goes a long way. In a similar vein, external light. So if you have light coming through the window, maybe you have street lights or neighbors' lights. If you could invest in blackout shades, that's a huge way to create that dark environment that's ideal for sleeping. I understand that at the end of the day, it might get a little slow, you get a little lethargic, you want that kind of boost, but this will actually disrupt, again, this cortisol melatonin relationship that will affect your sleep patterns. Like perhaps the poor sleep you're getting is leading to the need for coffee in the first place. So addressing that root cause is really important. In a similar vein, but a little bit more subtle, you want to avoid more stimulating supplements later in the day, and particularly multivitamins, only because I know a lot of people take multivitamins. Similar to caffeine, although it's not caffeine, they have a lot of different B vitamins and vitamins that help boost energy production. So if you're getting this shot of B vitamins and other vitamins that play a role in the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain and promote energy production, they could also keep you up later as well. The next one, if you happen to sleep with someone or you yourself are a mouth breather, you might want to consult a dentist. So being a mouth breather is a sign of sleep apnea, and sleep apnea is contributed to, among other things, very poor sleep. So if you know you're a mouth breather, if you live with someone that is, or you sleep with someone who is, tell him or her or yourself to go to a dentist and really get that checked out and see what you can do about it. Finally, be consistent. So this is really hard, especially on weekends. Obviously our sleep cycle or our sleep schedules are not the same on weekends versus the rest of the week. But the closer you can get to mimicking sleep and wake times on weekends and weekdays, the better overall sleep you're gonna have going forward. So if you can, try to be as consistent as possible with your sleep and wake times. Again, being consistent, staying on schedule, building habits that last will help increase your health long term. So that's all we have to cover for today. Again, if you like this video, really appreciate it. Hit the subscription button, notification bell. We're coming out with videos once or twice a week. Feel free to reach out to me. All my information is below. You can get our recipes. You can find our podcasts and courses at evokehealth.com. I'll link that in the description below. And until then, see you next time.